Drugs up here.
So I can let you know I won't be here next month.
Good evening, everybody.
this.
We're ready to start at 6:33
Okay.
for the planning board's meeting. Selena, would you like to take roll call?
Bert Belleville,
Here.
Amy Levitt.
Come on,
I can never say it out loud. Only
Come
in
on.
my head.
Lovisic.
Basic.
Always Lovisic.
Bruce Cheney,
Here.
Rich McNeil,
Here.
Stacy Susie,
Here.
Mike Delavecchio.
Here.
Louis Joseph,
Here.
Scott McWilliam,
Here.
Charlie St. Clair.
Here. And staff tonight, we have the big cheese downstairs, Dean,
Dietrich Feather, Planning Director.
thank you, and Kalina.
Lena Graham,
Graham.
Recording
I
Secretary.
didn't want to mispronounce the last name, because I never use it. Are we all set with membership tonight? Do we have any alternates that are going to be voting tonight here? How's it look?
You're good. Everybody's voting tonight.
Everybody's voting tonight. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we need a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meetings, unless somebody's got some issues with them.
So made.
Second. Second. All in favor? Beautiful. No, unanimous, something. Okay, do we have any presentations tonight?
No.
Moving right along then, number 7. We're gonna have, an extension here asking 7.1 PL 2018-0071 SP 00474 CUP for a wetland at 174 Province Street. Friends at the Grace Presbyterian Church are requesting to extend the approval to construct, as we remember, I guess that's, square foot, 3,028 square foot addition and 32 parking spaces. They want to extend it to December 5th.
23.
December 23rd. You're going to tell us why now?
Yes,
Okay. And just say who you are.
yes. My name is Michael Bemis. I've worked for many years at Steve Smith and Associates. I'm now working part-time at Du Bois and King, and Steve Smith and Associates produced the original site plan. And just a very brief history, the site plan was approved for what you just mentioned, addition to the building and basically parking, increase the size of it at the 174 Province Street location. That was approved in 2018. We had a couple of extensions that were granted after that, while we were securing funding. And then, about a year ago, we were in for an amended site plan approval, which we kind of broke the project up into 3 construction periods that were logical from a construction standpoint, but also from a funding standpoint, which would allow us to get started with that site plan. And that entailed first the addition to the side of the church, which has since been completed. Then the second part of it would be to expand the parking lot, and then the third part would be an addition to the back of the church. And that's where the increased seating capacity would come in at the very last part of it, after the parking lot would be expanded. So we have now took on the construction of the addition on the side of the building last spring. That's been completed along with all the associated utilities. And we have occupancy, and we've been using that. That included some additional rooms for classrooms, and also included a lift and elevator for access for some of our older folks. And that turned out really nicely. And so we're done, we're using that, and we're enjoying that. And now we're at the aspect of it, we're trying to raise the funding to do the parking lot. So that's why we're asking for the extension, because we're not ready to proceed with that part as much as we would like to, but we'd like a little more time.
Any questions from any of the board members? Staff,
Good to go.
looking for a motion? because I have no questions. Does anybody want to make a motion to
Sure,
accept
I'll
this?
make the motion that we approve the application for one-year extension for the Providence Street Grace Presbyterian Church.
Parking lot.
Parking lot and rear addition.
Right.
Oh, and the
Ul-
rear,
Ultimately, there would be another addition to the
Right,
rear.
3,028
apologize.
square foot.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Beautiful. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, now I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because you know it's my first time up here. Can we skip down to number 9 now? Okay. So 9.1, PL 2022-0106 SU 85 and 87 Lighthouse Cliffs. They want a boundary line adjustment between the two lots. So we need to vote for an acceptance on this. Anyone want to make a motion? Accept it?
I'll make a motion
Thank you.
that the board accept application PL 2022-0106 SU.
Second? It's been seconded. Go ahead. I was about ready to skip right by you there, so you,
We're just gonna go right to the
Oh,
approval?
man, we are
That's-
moving tonight, I'm
All
telling
right,
you.
I like this pace.
so if you could just introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Mark Conta-Demitraki, licensed surveyor with GC Engineering. I'm representing both parties for the boundary line adjustment for this project. It's pretty straightforward. It's essentially correcting a driveway encroachment issue, and I guess I'll take questions.
Does anybody have any concerns or questions? On the board?
I have a question. So, I'm looking at the site plan here, but the current boundary line, the driveway encroaches on the boundary?
Yeah,
is
that's
that-
correct.
is that right? So this will rectify that?
Correct.
And there's a slight change in square footage?
Very
to,
minimal.
Very minimal. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Oh, go ahead, Kit.
I was just curious, do you know if there will be any easements needed?
So Aqua has actually a non-exclusive easement over all of the lots for utility access, maintenance, and repair as part of the declarations and covenants of the subdivision. And that was done back in, I think it was 2004, 2005, when it was originally done. So it is, the easement is a non-exclusive easement is already registered in the registry. And we're gonna note it on the plan, on the final plan when we submit it. So, you know, if there are any easements or maintenance issues or something, that's all covered under the declarations of the subdivision currently. So the two parties wouldn't need to have a specific easement for utilities that would go across their properties.
Perfect.
Anybody else? Staff?
We're in favor of this boundary line adjustment. I do want to point out one correction on the staff report for you. The owner of the property that was listed as Aqua Vista has changed hands. It is now Colleen and Jerry Patterson. We do have a letter from the Pattersons authorizing Mark to represent them. And we also have a letter from the Frasers authorizing Mark to represent them in this matter. So we are good to go. Since we don't, the utility conditions are satisfied, this is a pretty straightforward boundary line adjustment, and we have no issues.
Beautiful.
I just have one question for staff.
Okay.
If in my application, the street address is identified as 85 and 85 Lighthouse Cliffs. Should that be corrected to
87,
85 and
thank you, yes. It's
87?
85 and 87.
Can we make
yes.
that change just for the record?
Yep.
Good catch, kid. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, public hearing is now, oh yeah, we gotta have a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing, thank you, Kalina. We'll open the public hearing at 6:40 PM. Would anybody like to comment on this application? Maybe that's somebody.
Somebody chiming in?
We'll give you another 15 seconds to jump up. Okay, not seeing anybody, we'll close this public hearing at 6:40. Actually, 6:41 now. Thank you. Okay, now will anybody entertain a motion or comments, if you have any comments? Don't all jump at once, it's simple.
I'll make a motion to accept PL 2022-0106 SU 85 and 87 Lighthouse Clips boundary line adjustment.
You mean approve?
Approve, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Kalina. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, no more questions or commentary?
Do you want to give your supporting?
Oh, yes, in the fact that it will take away the fact that the lot line crosses the road and relieve that interference.
Wonderful, okay. All those in favor? Nobody's opposing, so we're good to go on that one. Thank you. What'd he say?
We're moving at a rapid pace.
Moving right along.
Moving right along
Something
here
about
now.
rabbits.
Okay, we'll see if we can do the next one quickly. So this is 9.11, PL 2022-0107SU, 0108SP, 51 Elm Street. A proposal to change the form of ownership to condominiums for 20 residents and 1 commercial unit. Can we have a motion to accept this application?
Is it complete?
Is it complete?
Yes.
It better be completed. Well, we would have heard earlier, I would hope. So is there a motion to accept? Amy?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Way to
That
do it.
works.
I was
I'm
trying to
happy
be
with
really
that.
quiet
We know
for
what
my
we're
first
talking
couple of
about.
meetings.
Okay, that's good. All right. So,
I guess
I'm sorry?
Take a vote.
All,
Motion
thank you.
accept.
All, I'm moving so fast. All in favor here? Nobody's, okay, that's right, straight through. So, we have somebody to comment on this application. If you'd be so kind as to identify yourself?
Of course. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Ruberry. I'm an attorney at Westcott Law, representing the client here, which is Paugus Elm One LLC. I also have with me Ron DeCola, who is the designated applicant, agent for the applicant, who's also here to answer any questions if need be.
That's you, right? Okay. I just want to be able to glance over and know who I'm glancing at, so.
We can call him up if we need to, but I'm hoping most of your matters are contained in the application.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair. So the application is to simply convert to a condominium type of ownership. That typically involves HOA type documents and so on.
Correct, yes. So this is new construction. It's never been lived in or used before. The construction is almost complete, but not yet. The declaration of covenants that sets the terms for the association, along with those bylaws, were submitted to the planning department. We went through one TRC and had a few minor comments. Those comments were addressed, new documents submitted, and the planning department and Public Works, who each had the comments, have signed off and said that their concerns were met.
Thank you.
Of course.
So I guess I've got a question. Originally, this was for, these were going to be apartments, correct?
Correct.
And I understand why, this is not the first time in my longevity here that I've seen somebody make an application for apartments and then come back in at some time later, we're gonna change it to condominiums. I'm not disapproving of this, but I do want to say, just for the public record, is that we certainly would have, I think it would have been great for the city if those had remained apartments. It's tough for people, you know. If I was moving into town to look for a place to live, it certainly would be a lot easier for me financially to get an apartment, even though those are kind of pricey now too. But the condominiums are tough, and So that's really all I want to say about that. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? No? Staff?
As you know, this is a fairly routine application from the standpoint of this is merely a change of being one owner to multiple owners and with the condominium type documents. We've been through, as mentioned by the attorney, we've been through a couple of drafts, and all of the issues that planning and DPW raised have been addressed and taken care of. And so number 3A is irrelevant because we have that already checked off. There are no other unusual requirements for this. This is, they will have to do their process with the Attorney General, et cetera, but this is our one and only time to approve such a change in ownership.
I guess I have another question. Will this affect the parking at all?
The change in form of ownership does not affect the parking, no.
So the parking garage, as it is, is still enough there to cover all needs for the whole complex?
Correct. So the resident, as the documents are written that were submitted here, the residential apartments will each be entitled to spaces in the parking garage. That, of course, can be changed at any time if everyone agrees. But for now, there will be certainly plenty of parking for the residents.
Question, sir.
Sure.
Sarah, you only have one commercial unit as a condominium. I thought there were several on the ground floor.
Yes, good catch. That's a great question. So the condominium unit, which comprises the entire first floor, is a single unit. However, as you mentioned, there are sub-units A, B, C, D designated on there. That's simply for purposes of leasing, so that it's clear in the recorded plans what the square footage will be for those individual spaces, but they will be a single unit with a single owner. It's also provided in the condominium documents that there might be an option to later turn that into sub-condos and sell those units, but that would require a new approval process here.
Okay.
How many commercial units are there then?
7.
Seven,
Well, there's a single, sorry,
Yes,
let me
but
clarify. There is a single unit with 7 spaces anticipated to be leased to local businesses.
Okay.
Any other, oh, Stacy, go ahead.
So I don't know if this is for you or for Dean. Would the condo owners be allowed to rent them out?
So yes, they are allowed to rent them out so long as the rentals are consistent with city ordinance. We've also put in a minimum 30-day rental requirement in the documents.
Wow, so they're condos, but they can be apartments still.
Correct. And even the owner, if he chooses not to sell some of the units, which is certainly a possibility, and may just lease them. But this will allow a little bit more flexibility depending on what the market demand is.
That's good. That's very good.
I have one more question, if I may, for planning director. Dean, is the 1.5 spaces per unit, is that still applicable to this size residential units?
Yes, that is the requirement, 1.5 per residential
And
unit.
that's being met?
Yes.
And then what about with the commercial spaces?
We don't have a, no, I take that back.
Oh, it could be-
Parking is based off of square footage, so their combination of additional spaces that they have in the garage and the spaces that they are creating along the street will satisfy their public parking needs for their businesses.
But on the street, that's street parking. That's,
It is, but they have, in the process of this plan, they are creating
more spaces.
more spaces than there was originally.
So they're creating more spaces, but the city ultimately.
The spaces are on city property,
city
correct.
property. So
Yes.
the city be responsible for cleaning those, et cetera, not them. It should be like that because
Yes.
it's like that everywhere.
Well, I'm just trying to think where the property lines are, but yes, the parking spaces that are
City
adjacent to the street
Yeah.
are in the city right away and will be maintained
City
by
property.
the city, yes.
Okay.
The sidewalks, some of the sidewalk is city and some of the sidewalk is owned by the condominium. or owned by the project.
I am sure that the owner will do a good job keeping those sidewalks clear, because that just seems to be his style, so we'll let it go with that.
Well, thank you, and the planning department did also address that as one of their comments, and so we wrote that specifically into the documents to make it clear to the association that that was their obligation to keep the sidewalks maintained and clear for all portions that are part of the property.
Counselor Cheney.
I have a question, Dean. I looked at that the other day because they have the park, it seemed like they have the parking going the,
Straight in, yes.
yeah. But if you look at the curbing in front of Lakeport Landing and then the next house up after them, it appears to me that all of that parking is inside the curbing. If you look up the street, it almost looks like it's on their property, not city property.
We,
Is that by agreement with the owner, or?
I think we did do as you recall, because you're in the thick of this on the city council with unaccepted streets, Railroad Avenue, or portions of Railroad Avenue were not accepted by the street. In conjunction with this project, we made an agreement with the developer to redefine what would be the right-of-way, and it is reflected on their current boundary survey, that parts of what used to be on their property is now the right-of-way, so and then the city is in the process of
I knew that was
accepting.
the case for Railroad Ave,
Right.
but I don't recall it being the case for, I don't
No,
mean to
that's
drag
fine.
this
No.
thing out tonight, but
All of the parking on Elm is 100% in the city right-of-way, and always has been. And the first 4 or 5 feet of sidewalk is in the city right-of-way. And then there's a row of planters, and then there's more sidewalk as you go towards the building. The edge of the planters is the edge of their property line. So they will maintain the sidewalk against the building and the portion of the sidewalk that is in between the planters. And we're hoping they're gonna be, since they're out there anyway, kind of take care of the rest of the sidewalk too, but.
yeah. Okay, I am, like I say, I looked at it because I was there, and I have some concern that it's not city property. I'd ask that you look at it again. I don't think that affects, the parking part of it is not affected to
I
what
will
we're
look at
asking
it
for
again,
tonight, but I would
I'm-
like to look
Yep.
at it
Looks
with
like
you
it
again.
I'll check that again.
Looks like that's the lot line right there.
Okay, is there another question,
curb.
Amy?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to
Here's the curb.
comment on that.
Okay.
But this is,
So, when it used to be the strip mall, before it was taken down, there was that grassy area on either side. We actually, the city maintained that. So that was city property, and now that's gonna be gone in order to get up to the sidewalk. So it was city property that we have since removed and putting it now as part of the street as parking.
With all due respect, there are more than a few places where the city thinks it owns property and it doesn't, and places where it owns property and thinks it doesn't. So
Gotcha.
I'm sure you're right, but I'd sure like to know that we've
There you
checked it in more detail to be sure.
If I was someplace else, we could put money on this, just for fun.
Let's talk about that in public. What do you?
Just for fun.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other
Sure
questions?
that gets in the minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions here or comments? Thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you.
So now it's 6:54, we'll open it up for public comment. Any abutters here, or anybody else? We have an abutter. Come on up, for somebody. Please state your name and address.
Wayne Hackett. I'm a member of the United Baptist Church in Lakeport, a couple of buildings away from this. We don't have any issues at all with this case as it's, presented to you. I just would like to ask one other thing we feel is related. I'm gonna say about a year ago, someone approached us from the city asking us to sign off on an effort to make Park Street a public street. It's still a private street, and I assume that's, and I'm not sure, it's one of 87 odd streets in the city. that are still private. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. We heard a rumor that for some reason Park was going to stay private. And we didn't quite understand why it would be, what the emphasis would be there at all. Not a,
Can I answer that?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing before you do, Counselor. I feel your pain. Thank you. Go ahead, Counselor.
I can't speak for the council, but as a member of the council, I can tell you, the questions that have come up as a legal matter is, the people on Park Street own to the center line.
yep,
If any one of those people says, no, I won't give the city, that up to the center line, we can't take it over. It's a legal issue that none of us, well.
I understand that. Back a year ago, we actually met, I don't know who the man was because I was a little late. My wife met him first, but he, she raised her hand to literally contact everyone, all the abutters on the street, and get them to sign, a document of sorts that said, yes, we will go along with whatever it takes to return this, or to give this street to the city. And really nothing's changed because one of the people who signed off on this thing is the subject of your case tonight, the owner, and he owns more of the street now, and I don't see why that would be an issue. That's all I'm saying.
And I hope you're right that there won't be an issue. I
Okay.
just want you to understand.
Right.
It's not a we do or don't want you to have
Sure.
a public street. It's the potential that someone on that street, and believe me,
Well, I understand,
we're
but
running into that all over the city.
we actually thought we'd taken care of that over a year ago. Within a week of the time that we
I-
were presented that request, we had all the signatures, including, this gentleman as well as Lakeport Landing, everyone.
Yep.
And the owners of the buildings as they existed a year ago. Some of that has changed hands over time.
And
But there again, it's the same gentleman that owns the majority of the building there now.
Yeah.
Buildings that they're down. So anyway, it's a concern because we're not a moneyed church. And if it remains a private street, and all of a sudden we're faced with maintenance on that street, it's an impossible scenario for us. So we'd like to know where we stand. I don't think that's unusual.
I want you to remember everything you said tonight and bring it to a city council meeting, because they're the ones that are gonna make this decision, not this board.
Oh, I understand.
That's why I said I feel your
Okay.
pain.
Yeah,
But
my advice is don't listen to the chairman of this.
I never listened to Charlie anyway. but
Thank you very much.
He's an old neighbor of mine.
Okay.
All right.
He is correct that that's where
Yeah,
the
that was,
problem lies.
that was our only concern as a church, simple as that.
And I'll go a step further. It's not the city council may or may not agree to what you're talking about. The issue becomes, as a legal matter, if a present owner, when we go to take the street over.
Sure.
Says no, any one of them, it could be somebody with
Sure.
10 feet, we can't take over the street. At least, that's my understanding of what we've been told up to this point.
Yeah. We just don't want to be left holding the bag
Well,
for
I-
a portion
and
of the street, that's all.
frankly, I
You
think-
understand.
Before you go talking to the city council, who only has a yay or nay based on
Sure.
everybody having signed, before you go to them, I think I'd go to Mr. Everett or his representatives and say, are we still, are there any issues that
sure.
have arisen?
Yeah, we'll go back to the city contact and see, my wife will.
Yep.
To see where that stands. We just haven't
Good.
talked to him of late.
How long's it been since you got the first
It's been
set
a
of
good year.
approvals?
It's been over a year.
Over a year?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you get the time, I'd probably knock on some doors again and make sure it's updated.
Yeah,
'Cause-
well,
'cause that'll make it
there's
stronger
only
for
2
the
or 3
council.
doors now to knock on, so it's not a problem.
Right, but that would make it stronger for the council if you could say, hey, I just redid this again and everybody's still good with it.
It would make it stronger for the council. The council will accept the street.
Yeah.
That,
Well,
That's a fact.
just for your edification, we're in a little bit of a battle to hold on to our iconic building in the city. And we're not much, in many cases, different than the church on Church Street. We're trying to maintain this heritage of the city. And it's gonna be difficult, cause it's an expensive repair we're facing. So we're looking at all our alternatives right now. And the one we have ruled out is taking that building down.
Good.
We wanna hang on to that. It's right behind your door right there on that tapestry.
There are federal grants that you should be looking.
Oh, we're a lot deeper than that now. We're dealing with an outfit in Philadelphia called Partners for Sacred Places. They've done this all over the US.
Yep.
So we're trying to do the best we can to maintain that building and keep it intact.
I had an older gentleman approach me some time back who used to work at Scott and Williams and said, we all checked starting time, lunchtime, return from the clock on that church tower.
Well, the city at one time paid us to maintain that,
yeah.
as well
He
as
said
the Baptist church downtown.
Well, put
When-
that in
when
your
it-
request.
What's that?
Maintaining the clock, put that in your request to the
Yeah.
city.
Well, right now, we're not winding it because the steeple is moving too much, so.
Well, thanks for coming in. and,
All right, thank you, Charlie.
Enlightening us on all that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Is there anybody else at this time? Ah, we got another one. That's on this. Thank you. You have a question on this, what we're talking about? Okay, come on up.
So just one, like you brought up earlier. Oh, I'm John Decker, Daily Sun.
Thank you.
Just so we get through that. Something that you brought up to me during this, Charlie, was this was initially going to be apartments, right? And I talked to Dean about this afternoon. He says it's pretty common. People will put in for apartments, then shift to condos. But my question is, would this place have been approved if they were just going to do condos initially? And if so, what's kind of the point of going through that process and changing it if that's their intention the entire time?
Well, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody on this board, and I can't speak for the applicant, obviously, but I'm thinking, nobody freaks out about people coming here with condominiums. We've got a couple of big developments up at the Weirs that were put out as, I don't know if they're condominiums or private housing, up there on Endicott Street, I don't know what you'd call that, and nobody oh, we can't have that. I truly believe that, that they probably were gonna do apartments. We have a place on Weirs Boulevard that came back in here with a change. They were gonna be a motel again, and then they changed their mind, which they're entitled to do. I don't think that the city has, at least that I'm aware of, some rules that we can only have so many condominiums and only so many apartments. My comments were just that I'd like to see more apartments, but they've also said that the owners have the right to lease those apartments out, and we've seen those condominiums out, and we've seen that happen on Water Street. Water Street is the old Alan Rogers building. Those are all condominiums, but many of those are rented out to tenants by the owners. So in fact, they become apartments, not in name, but certainly in use. Matter of fact, the Colonial, some of the owners there have rented those out to, as you call them, tenants. They don't own the condominium, but they're tenants there, and they rent, they have a lease. So really, I guess, to look at it that way, it's kind of the same end result. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
I hope it made some sense.
Makes some sense.
Is there anybody else that,
Well, they also have a 30-day minimum, which would eliminate the Airbnb.
Correct.
right,
There's also a 30-day minimum to lease it out, so that eliminates the option of having it as an Airbnb.
well,
Thank you.
yeah. Any other comments from the public? Well, that certainly was a long one. We are at 7:04, and we're gonna close the public comments at this time. So, staff,
Yeah, we're recommend that you accept the application, and as I said, item 3A has been taken care of. Other than that, it's the standard boilerplate requirements. Part of your motion would encourage you to include some form of finding of facts, please.
who was gonna make the motion? Did you get that? Some form of finding the facts?
Supporting them.
Supporting the facts,
Yes.
all right. Well, any other questions or comments on this? Well, we would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion to accept application PL 2022-01 0107 SU. This application meets the requirements for zoning in this district and is simply reflects a change of ownership. This development, this application has been approved by this board previously, and all the requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met.
Okay, is there a
Move that
second?
we-
Go ahead.
I would,
Did you include what he?
I did.
That was just
Okay, we're good, okay.
I would say approve instead of accept.
Approval, yes, motion for approval, thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Rich. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just have to voice my disappointment because, you know, when Scott said he was building this building, we're all happy. Oh, we're gonna have 20 new rentals right down in Lakeport. And it would've been nice to have rentals there. And I'm disappointed that they're going condo, you know, cause they're gonna be bought up by Massachusetts. And it doesn't help our housing situation in Lakeport at all. I'm just disappointed.
Well, it certainly won't probably be potentially mid-income housing, but potentially it'll still be. I understand what you're saying, Mike, definitely. Is there any other discussion? Going once, twice, okay, let's have a roll call. I'm sorry, I just look at you and I see roll call, it's just, we should have a roll call. Amy, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay. Unanimous, you're all set. Thank you. And thank you for the others that commented. Okay, so the next one here is 9.111, PL 2022-0109 CUP, vehicle sales, 0110 SP for 1103 Union Avenue, a proposal for used car sales and rentals. So we need acceptance on that. Is that, we meet the requirements for acceptance?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion on that? Amy?
I'll make the motion that we accept the PL 2022-0109 CUP for 1103 Union Ave.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, nobody, did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, nobody's opposing, so we'll move right along now. Is there somebody here to represent?
Yes.
The applicant?
I'm Thomas Brown from South End Auto Sales. We're located in Laconia right now at 298 South Main Street. And we're proposing, our new location is 1105 Union Ave in Laconia, New Hampshire. And I want to thank Dean for all the help in this process. He's been a big help. We're proposing 27 total spots, 1 handicap spot, and 2 tenant spots for this apartment building above the car dealership.
That's it?
Yes, and we've already got a approval for our sign. Our sign is already up. And we are looking to move in shortly, before the end of the month.
Okay. What was that?
Is that the first time you heard it?
Yeah. It's not, nobody here, right?
It's been going all night.
No phones. If you got your phones on, please shut them off if they're making those weird noises. Okay, is there any questions from the board? Or-
Are we gonna close down the 298 South Main Street?
They sold it, I think.
The building is being actually sold. That's why we're having to move.
Is that Young's Auto? Am I in the
No,
right
Young's
spot?
Auto is across the street. South End Pizza is buying the property. So
Very good.
that's why we're having to move. When they buy the property, when the sale has not gone through yet, but it is going through, when the sale goes through, then they're not going to allow us to be there anymore.
Very
So
good.
he's going to save it. I just for parking, I guess, for his customers, so that's why we're having to find a new location.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I know you, said Dean had helped you a lot, which is great. But I see he's recommended a maximum of 20, is that right? But you would like 27?
That's what we were looking for,
Vehicles?
yes. Well, not 27 vehicles, but a total of 27 spots. One of those would be handicap parking, and 2 would be for the tenant apartment above. Yeah. And then the rest would be for vehicles or for employee parking.
Oh, okay, so now you're down to 24 cars?
They need space, parking spaces for employees, customers, et cetera, on the property, along with their display vehicles. So they have room for the 27 spaces plus the 2 for the tenant. But we are suggesting a limitation of 20 cars for sale to be displayed at a maximum at any given time.
So 20 cars for display and then 2 for tenants?
2 for tenants, and that leaves them like 5 spaces for employee parking and customer parking.
Say that again?
Employee and customer parking?
So you got 20 for display,
Correct.
2 for tenants, that's 22, and then,
5
so now,
for employees and
so 27.
tenants. Yeah,
You're asking for,
27 total.
oh, so it all works out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you're okay with a maximum of 20 for sale?
Sure.
Okay,
Yep, that
gotcha.
works.
Dean, I have a question. I'm assuming this is a hand-drawn sketch?
yes,
Because if you scale that off, that little pile there, this lot line is 200 feet,
yeah,
correct?
yeah.
There's 9 spaces.
What are you looking at? Hang on.
Do we have room to fit that many spaces in there and still have access up that hill to where the tenants are gonna park?
While Dean's checking, can someone give me a landmark where this?
Right
what's-
across from Dunkin' Donuts,
Across from, thank you.
in the strip mall from Dunkin' Donuts where Hathaway House used to be.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, it's not what they're looking at. Let me borrow that.
Yeah, sure.
Does anybody else have any questions while Dean's checking that out?
I have just a quick, is 1 space per unit
Enough?
acceptable?
It's, requirement is 1.5, so they're designating 2 for the apartments.
But there's 2 apartments, so is it 1.5
No,
for
it's
each?
one apartment.
Oh, 1 apartment?
One
Oh,
apartment,
I
yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's a 3-bedroom apartment, but 1 apartment, yes.
It's a big one.
It's big,
Nice.
yes.
I had scaled it off, Rich, and I had determined that there was sufficient room for the spaces that they have delineated.
So if you do anything with that other building, that beautiful building, if you make that an apartment, you would have to come back or to redesignate another parking spot for a tenant there? Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Okay. Just so you know, and you're not,
Right, if you were, I know what you're saying.
after all, the sign says the tiny profit, so I don't want you to get overburdened. It's a good slogan. I like that. Go ahead, Rich.
I've just got one other question. There's a pretty substantial stack of tires there right now.
Yes,
Are those gonna go away, or? are they
those
gonna-
won't be visible to the public eye. Yes, those will go away. Yep.
Okay. They'll be stacked though against the building somewhere?
Yes, they will be moved, so they won't be visible to
Fire
the public
department,
eye.
all set with that?
I don't see why they wouldn't be.
Okay.
That may be their plan, but under this plan, they are not allowed any outdoor storage.
Right. They would be inside, yes.
The tires would be inside?
That we'd move them. Yep.
Are those good tires?
Yes,
Okay.
they are. Just there's some renovations being done to the
Either
building
way,
now,
they
so they
won't be
can't.
there long.
Lock them
Right.
up. Lock the
Right,
tires
they're-
up in the meantime.
Yeah, they're doing renovations now, so that's why they're there. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any abutters here that wish to discuss this application? We opened it up at 7:15, by the way, just for the records, kid. Okay, seeing none, we'll tick, tick, tick. We'll say it's 7:16, we'll close it at. 7:16. Okay, staff.
Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit. As you know, there are other car dealerships of various kinds already on Union Avenue and elsewhere in the city in the UC zone, so this is not unique. Under our table of permitted uses, it was decided long ago that car sales would be done in this zone by a conditional use permit, so that's why they're here. In our various conversations with the applicant, we came up with the 20 display vehicles. In other words, the 20 maximum that they can have for sale. They have already been in for their sign permit. And other than that, there's nothing unusual. Well, let me just say. Oh, I do want to point out to the board that we are stating that of the 20 display vehicles, there's a maximum 7 that will be along Union Avenue. And they must keep the traveled right-of-way, that is Zion Hill Road, must be clear of all, of anything, because that is a recorded right-of-way for the church up at the top of the hill, church and school. And the area between Zion Hill Road and 1123 Union Avenue, there's a little grassy strip that's probably about 15 feet wide, cannot be used for vehicle display or storage of any kind. And that's has historically been where the snow has been plowed from the parking lot and stored, so, which is fine. It is the applicant's property, so that's fine, but we just do not want it to be used for display or storage. And as it's been noticed, there's a minimum of 2 parking spaces for the apartment upstairs.
They said they've worked very well with you, so everybody's on board with this, obviously. And one other question I have, and I don't want to make the applicant come back up, but Dean, do you know if the dealership at the south end, was it the same size for cars as this one is, or is it bigger, or is it smaller?
It's smaller. They've been there under that kind of a use for quite some time, certainly way before me, so I'm not sure what kind of regulations that they would be under in terms of how they stack their cars and all that stuff, so it's kind of a very different situation, but
It works.
we trying to be proactive here to help a business relocate, but at the same time, we want to be able to preserve as much of the aesthetics as we possibly can along Union Avenue. And aesthetics is a very subjective term for Union Avenue, I agree, but that's what we're trying to do.
Will there be any maintenance done here?
No.
I think it fits in well if you go from Canton's, all the development down there, and right up through, so, okay.
Yeah, there's a couple other, at least one others between Canton and this
Right, across
location,
from Rollins.
so, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Rich?
I'll go back to the parking. When I scale that off, they show 5 spots and 30 feet. That's 6 foot wide for a parking spot. That's pretty tight.
That, up along the garage drive, is that what you?
That's correct, yep.
Enough room to open a door.
They
Is it?
can,
That's enough room to open a door, right?
I mean, they've got a little space towards the road that they could use and a little space towards the garage that they could use. They're not, they are not required to meet our standard
A standard
parking space size. It's more of a, we're trying to control count more than,
In size, okay.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Can we get them to put a tree on that grassy strip?
What grassy strip? Yeah.
By Zion.
I think that would be a problem with line of sight for the road when you're pulling out of there.
Yeah.
As a former tenant there, it's pretty busy street, so you really gotta be looking back and forth a lot. And I know when people do have a car there, whether it's these people or even the car wash people on occasional park a vehicle out on that, it hurts the line of sight, so I don't think, I understand what, it'd be nice, but I think that would be a hindrance for,
We could come up from the road a wee bit on the grassy knoll.
I don't,
It wouldn't last if that's where they're storing
Snow-
the snow, because
Snow
it'll
will
end up
destroy
with
it.
a whole
Snow
bunch of
gets pushed
salt
there.
and everything.
But the other thing, and it's not just them that pushes snow there, Zion Hill pushes all their snow in that corner right there too, as they come down, because they can't push it on their, to the left, because that's on the property of where there's gonna be a car dealership now. So that could be a problem there too. All we can ask them to do is keep the cars nice and shiny when they're along the road, and pick up any debris that gets, because you get a lot of debris on the street there, a lot of debris. So that's a constant, constant thing. I don't know where else you could put trees.
Well, we had it before to another car sales place that got an allowance to do away with the street trees and do small shrubs, so that way they didn't have leaves,
debris.
tree debris, and bird droppings on their cars they were trying to sell.
Yes, and
I've forgotten that, but
if
you're
you
right. Yep.
recall, this member of the board was not happy about that, so at least he's being consistent. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion on this application from somebody. I'd ask Amy again, but. you're not there.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve PL 2022-0109 CUP and 0110 SP for 1103 Union Ave, citing that it is an allowable use in that zone with an approved CUP, and there are other businesses in that zone that already have those purposes.
Is there a second? We can
I'll
bring it up.
second that.
Thank you. It's been
You're
seconded by
welcome.
Amy. Any discussion? This is your chance.
Okay, so under the application, you put sales and service, so are you talking customer service or service on the vehicle?
The use, as we describe it in our table of permitted uses, is sales and service. They are not proposing any service. I mean, obviously, they'll be servicing their customers, but not,
Got you, okay, that's just
not
a
repairing
category.
cars or that kind of stuff.
They might use some of those tires. Might be putting some of those, right? Is that what you'd be doing with those tires?
Yeah, they would go to a shop for a vehicle.
Anybody else? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, as nobody's opposed, that's unanimous. Thank you very much for coming in and making your application. Okay, looks like I'm gonna lose my time here, unless I hear a motion to adjourn. Okay, new business. We have 11-1, Capital Improvements Committee, CIP. Oh, we can breeze right through that.
Yes,
Who's gonna
we
make
can.
that? Is that you? You're gonna make that? Stacy, you're gonna do that?
I was told that the letter is right there for y'all to see, and
Okay.
we're here for questions.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move right along.
There we go.
I would just like to say thank you for not putting me at the bottom.
You're welcome.
That's all
I
I
just
care.
got one
Not the
question, and
bottom.
thinking only something I'm familiar with. There's two line items for SCADA systems. One is for water and the other one's for SSF. And no one, when you go out to bid for something, it's gonna cost you money to hold a bid event. Could they combine those into one item to streamline the system?
Is that the water?
One's water and the other one
Sewer.
is sewer. I mean,
Water
SCADA's
and sewer.
SCADA, it's just a matter of what you're using for,
That's a good point. We can bring that up, but it's certainly, it'll be two pots of money, but certainly could be one bid.
Combine into one vendor,
Yep,
just thinking.
that does make sense. We'll,
And you understand you're on the committee next year?
Thank you for volunteering.
yeah.
Amy's taking my place.
Amy would love to take anyone's place who would like to give it to me, because guess what?
Although I do want to just draw, the people who were not on that committee, I just want to draw attention to that we hope something will be done about a capital reserve fund. That was the main thing that came out of that
Yes.
meeting. So we're hoping to put a little pressure on city council to think about it
I
at
think
least.
that Counselor Cheney will be pushing that right along.
I will, I would suggest that the planning board entertain the idea of official support for the idea of a capital improvements program. Several of the department heads mentioned it. And, you know, when you look at million-dollar trucks and whatever, you know, we need to start developing a reserve to take care of purchasing of those things. So I think the planning board's support of that would be, I think you'd agree, I think it would certainly help me if the board sent a letter supporting, or we asked the department to draft a letter.
Could you guys do
supporting.
that? Do you think-
I'll have Kalina put something on the agenda for the January meeting that would be a formal vote for the planning board to
Great, perfect.
Wonderful, we don't need
take a
to vote on that.
recommendation. And we'll write it up for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on the CIP?
Is there nothing on here for sidewalks again? Or am I overlooking it?
No, we-
Or is
we-
it an unsaid part of
No,
something?
We got
that's-
taught on that.
You got taught?
No.
You've been
No,
briefed?
there was somebody talking about it, I'm not so sure everybody agreed with it, but, isn't there is something here.
Oh, there's a line item for
There's a line
sidewalk
item for
repairs.
sidewalk.
Where is it?
Number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's near the top of the list.
Yeah,
In the top 10.
Oh, look at that.
Pay attention.
They are little, I
Hey.
can understand.
it's all right. Is there, anybody else have any questions? Okay,
It's a valid concern.
so,
Is-
okay, so a motion to recommend.
Put money in the budget for larger type print on here, maybe 2 pages.
I'll pass that over to staff. Is somebody want to make a recommendation, we send
2
this
sheets
along?
of paper, I should say.
I would like to make a motion to send this wonderfully written letter along to the city council.
And I'd second that.
Okay, beautiful. All in favor? Raise your hands. Beautiful. Okay. Now we'll move along. Thank you. And Stacy, thank you for a great job. But everybody's been thanking you, and I'm surprised we'll have a big bouquet of flowers for you here tonight. Next
To
meeting.
match the sweater.
I like your sweater. Okay, so the next item, 11.11, we've been asked by the chair to table this, and that this was his idea to discuss this. So you guys can do what you want, but I think we'll give, or Dean would like to speak, but I just would like to, I think that's probably what we should do. Go ahead, Dean.
I just want to point out to you the memo that we gave a copy to you all concerning this agenda item. If the board's pleasure is to table to next month, that's fine. I just want to point it out to you, and please take it with you and be aware of it for the next meeting.
Bring it back at the next meeting if we so decide to table it. Is there a motion to table this agenda item to the next meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Second, okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, I don't think we can get down to the bottom of this in another minute. Oh, for the next meeting.
January 10th.
Thank you. Okay, so we have on the old business, 13, a planning department report. Thank you very much.
We are still in the process of looking for an assistant planner and a zoning technician. As some of you know, because you serve on other boards, our zoning technician, Sheena Duncan, is transferring over to be the conservation technician. Her background is in environmental sciences. That's her degree is in environmental sciences. So she would like to do that going forward. So she is going to make that changeover, and lucky her, she gets to do both jobs for a little while until we find a replacement. But we are looking for, with help of other staff, of course, but we are looking for a replacement for the zoning technician, and we're still for the assistant planner.
Hopefully her pay reflects that she's doing two jobs. Never mind, just out of.
Sure.
I think the Plan Link Digest is gonna be a big help.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, anything else, Dean?
No.
Okay, so now we go to liaison reports, and I see I have a little note over here. It says, under Lakes Region Planning Commission, the first thing we need to do is appoint Rich to this, till June of 2026.
Right, what you'll be doing is recommending to the city council that they appoint him to the
Right.
LRPC commission.
Really?
Does anybody,
Carpool?
does anybody have any issues with that? Poor soul doing this till 2026. So do we need to vote on that? Well, we need to vote on it. Would somebody make a motion on that? Amy? So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Thanks for that.
Counselor?
Abstain.
Okay. So,
You're in favor, right?
so everybody voted yes with one exception, one abstention. Thank you. Okay, next,
Do you want the notes?
yes, go ahead. Do you have notes on that?
I do. We had our last meeting of the year, November 28th. We'll start up again in March, so you get a little holiday reprieve. We went over the regional transportation plan. It has been reorganized by corridors. A plan will be released this summer using mobility, safety, economic development, resiliency, maintenance environment, livable community, and electrification as its goals. They have a new planner, so they have all this new stuff. We went over the 10-year plan. The commission submits the highest ranked projects to DOT. Regional allocation is 6.1 million. Only 3 applications this year. One of them is in Laconia. It will be the 3/4 mile stretch of Union Ave, going toward Guilford. That will be a 2.2 million price tag. All projects now require an engineering study, and Laconia was mentioned as being very fortunate because it was able to be done in-house. GIS stands for Geographic Information System. They can create maps and overlays of anything. For example, road maintenance, culverts, drains, traffic count, just throwing that out there in case we ever decide if you can use, this commission is expensive, but you can use it if you want a map of something. They also had a list of alternative funding. I jotted down a couple resources that I had never heard of: Bridge Investment Program and Safe Streets and Roads for All, just to keep in the back of our minds that there are so many programs out there that not all of them. And then I have notes for conservation. Oh, which is right after. So, Conservation Commission saw an application on 48 Lucerne Ave. They were being proactive, and they went in front and requested the developer has one structure smack dab in wetland delineation, and so they are requesting that the developer go back to the map and try and take away just one unit. They were very pleased at the attempt to hold and treat all the runoff that currently exists in that area. And that's all I've got.
I have a question, if I may. Sorry.
Yes, please, by all means.
Stacy, does the Regional Planning Commission, do they deal with anything to do with public transportation on a regional or local basis?
Yes.
my understanding is there used to be sort of a public bus service in Laconia at one time.
Yes.
And-
Glitta,
What?
glitta,
Yeah, okay, and that doesn't exist anymore.
right.
And is there is anybody looking ahead to see if there's a need for public transportation on that sort of level in the future?
You know, the reason Glitter's not doing that anymore is because
There wasn't
the
any.
the money wasn't there. Before that, and I'll go back to our former chief of police over here, we used to have Guyer's bus service. Guyer's bus service ran a route all around the city, including the Weirs. And I don't know if the owner passed away or what the reason for them was closing down. Maybe Bruce remembers, I don't, but we have had it, and, you know, we have a private entity up at Weirs Beach running vans. For right now, they just do restaurants and bars up towards the Weirs area. They come down, I think, as far as the Margate. And perhaps if they thought the money was there, they would do something like that. But again, the money's gotta be there for somebody to be able to do it.
Right, I'm just,
Unless we had support from the state, which then wouldn't.
well, that's why public transportation typically has government subsidies, state or federal.
Not working out too well.
And again, I'm
in our
not
pocket.
sure, whether there's a need for public transportation.
There's always a need for public
Yeah, and
transportation.
looking ahead.
Wait,
But-
just a minute.
When the state,
There was no ridership to
Well-
speak of.
well, that could,
I said
that's what I
that.
mean, yeah, there
Right.
wasn't the,
But, I mean, I don't think there's anybody here who wouldn't like to see public transportation if there was a use and need for
a
it.
need for it. Well, again, looking ahead, state school
And,
property.
and I agree,
you know,
somebody should look ahead and start asking
There's
questions about
gonna
that.
be a lot of people living up
But
there.
understand why it went away. It went away 'cause
Wasn't
it
being
died.
utilized, it was underutilized.
Yeah.
Even,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
in the summertime, since my time is shot to hell now, but I can keep talking. Even in the summertime, it's quite often, which is one of my gripes about no sidewalks on, all the way on Weirs Boulevard, but quite often you'll see, like, literally, people just traipsing back and forth, carrying groceries or just walking to get down to, with Walmart or the supermarkets down there. And I'm sure if there was somebody, you know, doing a service, they would be taking the bus or a van or whatever it was.
Right.
But again, like Bruce said, that, there's not a lot of ridership. However, I would say, I think, if somebody was to try it again, they might be pleasantly
I
surprised.
think the state school is a critical
Right.
potential
Very good
component
point.
for that.
Right.
The bus at one time went to Tilton,
That's right.
to the mall
Yeah,
in Tilton.
yeah.
You would think that would be a draw. It wasn't.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
until there's,
Well, the population has gotten a lot older.
be careful.
Well, it has.
But I believe there are transportation services for
Yes.
the elderly.
Which I just got told, I met one of the drivers, and they said a lot of them, there are not enough drivers, and so
That's for cap.
it's gotten very reduced in service, and the woman I spoke to actually volunteers to drive the seniors around, and so there's a definite need for seniors, but
Well, I would just ask that, our representatives on the planning commission kind of maybe keep an eye, I mean, the landscape's changing. I mean, cost of energy is higher, people may be more reluctant to drive their
well,
own
their
vehicles.
first question
The
would
state
be,
school
where's your
property
money?
may increase the need for such, so, just kind of, I don't know what the right word is.
I think if somebody.
Endorse it, push it, whatever, see what's possible.
I think, because as Bruce knows, there's a lot of grants out there, and I think if somebody came up with a solid plan, and they wanted to do something, there certainly are avenues or doors they could knock on and say, hey, this is what we wanna do, this would be great for the community, be great for the county, and, potentially come up with something. And, so it's not worth thinking, and if you wanna pursue that, let me know, and I'll try to point you in the right direction,
Okay,
seriously.
okay.
Okay, so now we're going to city council.
I refuse to answer on the grounds that,
The only thing that I recall, and I'm hoping Dean will help me here, there were three proposed, and I forget which organizations, the three
recommendations at the last council meeting that were tabled.
Or,
One was Lakes Region Planning Commission.
oh, for appointments, yes.
Right, the appointment.
Uh,
There were two others.
I think it was planning and,
Well, and I'm having the brain cramp that you, in any case, there were three positions. One of the members, one of the councilmen asked us to table it. There was a discussion about, did the people who were going on these committees or commissions have to live in the city? I think that was one of the questions. And did it have to be a city employee? And so we're looking into that. And the third thing was, we had formed an appointments committee for people to be put on the planning board,
Right.
Board of Adjustment, whatever, and these three didn't go there. And so I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna go back and send them to the appointments committee for review, and candidates, open it up for candidates to apply for these positions like they can for any other board or commission in the city.
I only chuckled because I remember going before that group.
I'm sorry, say that
I
again?
said, I chuckled because I remember going before that committee.
We chuckled.
Yeah, I know, it was quite a laughing moment. Okay,
so, and I have alerted the city manager to this, so for Lakes Region Planning Commission, and I believe that is I could be wrong, but I think that's the only one that applies. As we did tonight, the recommendation comes from the planning board to the city council, but we will send that to the appointments committee if that's the appropriate place. Obviously, for the rest of the board, straight board members, that is, the appointments committee, it always has been. The individual boards do not nominate or whatever, future members.
I think the point I would try to make is, we just weren't sure what the ground rules were and what had to be, did it have to come from here first? Does it require a vote of this board? That sort of thing. We just weren't sure. It still has to go, the council believes, to the appointments committee, as Dean has suggested, and we'll.
which is a good thing,
Yeah.
I think.
I compliment Councilman Susi for recommending this. My personal experience is that you learn things in the appointment committee that you had no idea. Just things that, I remember one of the applicants for the library board, we had a lengthy discussion about security over there that I don't think any of us had ever thought about before. So, I mean, I think there's some good things that come out of it, and I think Bob should be credited with coming up with the idea.
Should we send a letter for that?
Just a thank you note will be fine.
I'll tell him.
Do you know him?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Okay, the next one is that it, Bruce?
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So the
Oh,
next,
can I add one more thing to that?
the city
The Lakes
council?
Region Planning Commission.
Oh, okay.
They do seem to be cracking down on if you're not allowed to miss many. So if you miss 3, they actually boot you off or send a letter to the city saying that you were incredibly negligent.
You're telling Rich this, I think. Okay, next one,
Way to win and influence friends.
so the next one is the Historical District Commission, and we did not have a meeting this last month, and we are waiting for the city council to move on the recommendations we made to our, what would you call it, our bylaws?
Yes, in your ordinance, yes.
Ordinance, yeah. So, anyway, our next
Where do we
meeting,
stand on the dimensions of the historic district?
that's all been recommended, passed to you. You guys to act on.
Need to resolve the ordinance issues
Okay.
before we do that. Yep.
Okay, on to other business here. The first thing I can think of is you all have in front of you is the calendar for this coming year. So you can put it in your phone calendar or,
And I will point out, I will,
Wait, all I have to do is miss 3 meetings?
I will point out to you that there are 3 abnormalities on this schedule, so January 10th will be the meeting instead of the 3rd because of the holiday.
Hangovers.
I know that nobody wanted to be here on July 4th, so we moved the planning board to the 11th of July. And in November, our normal meeting date would be Election Day, and it would be a city council, citywide election day, so it'll be pretty busy in this building that night, so we moved it to the day before on Monday, just in case you're gonna do a first Tuesday of the month on your calendar. That doesn't work 100% here.
I have no other business. Do you guys have anybody else here? So, I do have one thing I want to say, but before I do that, did you get, you know, we don't normally have people hanging out back there, so, did you guys want to say something even though you're not on the agenda? No?
Participate as part of your other business.
I know, but I just wondered if you had something else you wanted to add. People don't usually hang around.
This is very enlightening.
I'm sure. Okay,
You're
so,
the only two in the room that aren't bored.
I,
We could entertain the board for a moment, is that possible?
Sure.
Sure.
Wonderful.
why did I have to say anything?
We'll keep it short.
But your subcommittee here that
Regarding
other
the item that you tabled earlier this evening, can the
Well,
planning
first of all,
board?
can you say who you are again, just for the...
Brian Wolf, Laconia, New Hampshire.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the item you tabled this evening, can the planning board state this evening with certainty that the expansion that's proposed of over 1,300 dwelling units at the state school property, 1,000 convention visitors, a hotel with 250 guests, can the planning board state with certainty this evening that the city services could accommodate that growth?
I don't think that we're in a position here to make any type of thoughts on that. That's gonna be way over, certainly over my head, but I think it's over the board. It's above what we're dealing with right here now. And I don't even know if anybody has actually bought that property yet.
There's a meeting of the executive council to sell it tomorrow.
Okay. I won't be there. But they're having a meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
and they're consummating the sale.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Well, I think things will start to happen after that.
So
and then-
let me just apologize, just in the interest of time, I know you all want to get out of here. So is the answer to the question no? We don't know with certainty that the city's services, when I say services, public schools,
Sure.
water, public works, are all of those services with ample capacity to support the proposed growth?
I have not looked into that myself, but I would leave it to the experts within the city to answer those questions and
Yeah.
know that.
I actually asked the same thing, and I was told that it's going to be phased so gradually that things will be allowed to grow along with it.
But you
So
need to
it's
plan
not
for the
that-
peak of what that would be when you put the city services in place, right?
Well, it's not gonna be all of a sudden 1,300 homes being dumped on there and inhabited immediately. I was told that it will be quite a lengthy process.
So would you propose the city expand, for example, the schools by waiting until the overcrowding takes place, or that there's not enough water to support the property? Even if it's in phases, don't you need to plan for the proposed development that's on the table?
I would think that the water would be put down there probably right up pretty quick on that. Go ahead,
I
Rich.
believe that's one of the key pieces in there. They've got to rebuild that water tower and replace that main that feeds that.
I guess, just again, just in the interest of time, so we don't have to debate it, and that's not the purpose of our visit this evening. It sounds like the answer to the question is no. We're not certain that the city is prepared to accommodate the proposed growth. Is that right?
No, I said that I'm not privy to be given that type of information because I don't know. It's not my job.
So the planning board doesn't know. I'm not trying to be difficult.
I'm saying that I personally, I'm not making.
You personally.
You would go to the planning department for that. The planning board will act on stuff that's brought before the planning board. I think that question is, Dean, you can correct me if I'm wrong with it, but I think those questions you're asking is something you should bring directly to the planning department and ask them that.
But won't
And
the
then-
proposed development come before the planning board?
But not until they go before the planning department. They don't come here and then we send them to the planning department. It's the other way around. And I also think that those questions, while they're good questions, should probably be taken to Public Works, possibly the water department. When that's all done, that's when that comes here. The proposal, all spelled out, comes to this board.
Right.
So, again, I would say that I'm not in any position to answer that question. with all due respect, think anybody else. We do have a city councilor here, though, with his hand up that can maybe help you.
Well, I took my hand down because you said experts, which I'm not, but, but I would point out, the answer, the simple answer to your question is no. In my mind, and I suspect in most other people's minds, the city is not prepared. But I would remind you that a little over a year ago, that was an abandoned piece of state property that nobody was paying any attention to. There was a 911 facility and a leak treatment fire mutual aid facility there. And I think the Department of Administrative Services stored stuff there. And here we are a year and a half later, and it's being sold for $21 million, $22 million, and the city of Laconia, other than Dean, has not seen much of anything. So all the things we're saying to you, including anything Dean might be able to say to you, is dependent upon what happens tomorrow, for starters. There's no way for this city to plan for what's going on at the state school property today, because we don't even know if the governor's council is gonna say yes.
All right, well, we'll know tomorrow. I guess
Yeah,
I'll
and-
close with this
and
question. I'm
before-
sorry, I don't mean to take so much time.
No,
I
no,
apologize.
no.
That's okay.
But I'm figuring you guys were gonna speak on this if we had covered this item tonight.
Right.
So I'm thinking now that you said what you said, you won't be here at the next meeting, because you've already said your piece? Probably not. You'll be here at the next meeting.
Well, yeah, it
I'm
depends.
teasing you right now.
Closing question.
Okay.
Will the planning board conduct an immediate study to determine the current utilization of city services compared to what's proposed? So that at least there's a study to know, is there a gap between what's proposed at the state school and what the city's able to deliver in terms of services? And then
Again-
if there's a gap there,
Again, you're asking questions that should go to the planning director, and I see he's got his hand up over here. But there's a process here, and it's not to come before this board first.
there is a process, yeah.
Right, and again, I'll just repeat one more time, we get everything all spelled out, and that's what we base our decisions on, but go ahead, Dean.
So, I agree with Council Cheney that at this moment, we can't answer your question, and the answer is, the short answer probably is no. However, as Charlie has said, in our discussions with the developer before they get to the planning board, those are exactly the kind of questions that we need to ask them and the concerns be raised with them in terms of how do we get enough water there? And they know they need to pay for that. How do we get enough sewer there? They know they need to pay for that. How do we house the students that may be generated from that amount of housing? And the answer to that depends on the type of housing that actually is going to get built, as opposed to the conjecture that we've had up till now, which is very, very limited in information. Depending upon the nature of the housing, i.e. is it apartments, is it townhouses, is it single family, is it whatever, generates a different number of students. And just to give you an example, currently in the state of New Hampshire, New Hampshire tracks the nation fairly closely, not exactly, but currently in the state of New Hampshire, the average single-family house generates 0.65 students, school-age students. Apartments are less, townhouses are surprisingly more. It depends on the exact kind of housing that it is. So if there's 1,000 units of housing that are single-family houses, which they won't all be single-family houses, but just using that as an example, if that generates 650 students, then the answer is we need an elementary school, and we probably need additions to the middle school and the high school. Right. And then the question is, how do we pay for that? And the answers are there are multiple different answers that get you to the same point, but I don't know what those answers are at this point in time. But the first step is to generate that data and get to a point where you can, with some you know, guesstimating, say, what is the impact to the city? And there is no question that there will be more students. There's no question, okay? There's no question there'll be more demand on water. There's no question there'll be more demand on sewer. There's no question there'll be more demand on our ambulance service, our police service, at the library, it's Parks and Rec, and everything. And so those are the things that need to be looked at. Now, we have a thing called an impact fee for every new residential unit built in the city, with some few exceptions. They pay an impact fee. Again, using just single-family home as an example, it's around $3,300 per unit. About half of that goes to the school to try to offset their expenses to provide, not services, because that comes out of your ongoing tax revenue, but to provide facilities, which is the more expensive part, at least up front, that you've got to worry about. Obviously, if you had, and I don't want this number to be bandied about because it's very inaccurate, but if we had 650 new students, obviously that leads to teachers and support aid and et cetera, et cetera.
Trucks to plow the streets, everything.
Right. But it's also 1,000 units of housing that are going to generate a tax to, to the city that right now, as Council Cheney said, is zero up there. And so the revenue stream to support ongoing operations should be there from a property tax standpoint. It's getting the facilities available that is the key point. And that is one thing that we need to do in our run-up to getting to the planning board, is making the developer understand. And in my discussions with this developer, they have a level of understanding. Whether they completely understand and completely agree remains to be seen, but they do have a level of understanding that they are on the hook for a number of expenditures, just as most developers in this city have when they build a new development. They build the water, they build the sewer, they build the streets. All of that is, now, most developments don't require a capacity increase because it's there in the street. But, yes, so there have been some preliminary looks at if we all of a sudden needed to provide 1 million gallons a day to that one spot, how would we do that? And we don't have an answer to that, but there are scenarios that allow it to happen. And the same thing going downhill the other way is what do you do with...
Can you share those scenarios this evening, sir?
No, I cannot, no.
Okay.
No.
So the answer to the question is no. So the planning board's not prepared. So there's two approaches. Does the planning board plan to undertake, because you have an item on your agenda tonight, a moratorium on development until we're prepared to make sure we can support the proposed development?
Right.
Or, under RSA 675-25, do you need the voters, do you need us to come to you with the study and tell you what the gap in capacity is between what's proposed and what the city can currently supply? Does the board have a preference? In other words, a study's gonna need to be done.
I'm waiting
You
to
could
hear
declare
from
a moratorium until the study is complete. You can conduct the study, or the voters can bring it to you. Do you have a preference?
I don't, this moratorium, I really want to, we tabled this conversation till the next meeting.
Okay,
and
that's fine.
And I appreciate everything you've asked, but
Can I just interject for a
Sure.
moment? We tabled this tonight because the person who proposed it, the chairman of this board,
Right.
wasn't able to be here tonight. We didn't table it to avoid it. We tabled it as a courtesy to him.
Okay.
So it's not like we tabled it to ignore you or anything else.
Nobody's saying
We
that,
tabled it, like I said, to take care of him. If I can add a couple of things, if I might, Mr. Chairman. I attended, and I know Dean and the previous city manager attended a number of meetings of the Lakeshore Redevelopment Planning Commission, which had been in effect for over a year, 2 years, 5 years, 4 years, which was planning this stuff. The governor comes along and said, never mind, we're gonna sell the damn place and devil take behind it.
City tried to buy it, right? Put a bid out.
Well, that's a long time ago. But there are a lot of plans that have been looked at over the years. And I'd also point out to you that this development includes assisted living. They're not gonna put many kids in school, 300, I think.
Yeah.
300 assisted living folks. God bless them if they can add to the school system, but it's doubtful in my mind, my old mind. I just want you to understand the two things. One, that the planning commission that was doing what you're asking was suddenly sidetracked by the governor. That's nobody's fault here, nor is it anybody's fault in the council or anywhere else in the city of Laconia. In the greater scheme of things, this may sound hard to believe, but it's my belief, and I've been around
Couple of years.
a couple of years. This stuff doesn't happen like that. And we can't give you an answer like that. Not because we don't want to. I'd love to be able to say, next Tuesday, we're gonna do this, and a week from Friday, we're gonna add 7 of those. We can't do it. And the part of the problem is, right now, all we know is the place may sell, they may enter a purchase and sales tomorrow, right? They may enter a purchase and sales agreement, which could fall through. I mean, it's just so many variables. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to take up everybody's time, but I feel for what you're saying. I spoke to your director and said, you make sure day one, you're there talking about how big a pipe we want and whatever. Not 6 months from now. And I'm telling the police chief and the fire chief, who happen to be my liaison responsibilities, the same thing. Don't wait 6 months or a year. But to come and ask us for an answer tonight, other than no, regrettably, but not because we failed, not because the planning director went, oh, the hell with it, I'm not gonna plan it. We haven't had time.
Bruce, no one's trying to accuse the board of failure. That's
Oh,
not the purpose.
okay,
This isn't
fair-
an adversarial discussion.
I understand
We're all
that.
in this together.
Exactly. But I just wanted you to understand that the tabling part of it was not anything where we didn't want to discuss it. It's a matter of the planning director, our planning board chairman wasn't here, and he
I've
proposed.
taken enough of your time. Thank you very
Well,
much. I apologize.
If I
Sorry.
can just add something too, to what you were saying. As you pointed out, that the purchase and sales might not go through. All of these numbers of units and this type and that type, that's all just proposal. That was just, hey, this could be possible.
It's the proposal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but we haven't seen
We all saw it in this
conceptual
room.
designs. We haven't done anything
The
like
state presented it to us and said, here it is. Do you have a comment? Yeah.
until they turn something into the planning department.
It
There
doesn't exist.
are no plans.
Yep.
And once they turn something into the planning department, that's when the technical review starts.
Understood.
And we sitting here at the table, besides those people over there, we have nothing to do with that until all of the problems have been hashed out. And that's it.
And believe it or not, I appreciate your coming tonight, just so you could wind me up.
Come back next
What's
month.
the purpose, Bruce?
I know that. Listen,
Make sure you come
Glad I
back
asked
next
what you were
month.
doing back there, so.
Sorry I've taken so much time. Have a wonderful evening.
No, I'm glad you
Appreciate
came.
your volunteering and your service.
thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to say something real quick. I want to thank you all for listening to me tonight, and.
Great
just-
job.
No, I just, I'm sorry that I lost my bet, but 7:30, but not too bad, I think, 8:04. So, thank you all very much, and I won't see any of you again, so Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year to all of us. No, this is the December meeting, right? I lost track of everything, so,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all of us, and,
Everybody here should know that that old fart is going in for significant surgery in the next day or two, and I personally want to wish him the
Thank-
best of luck, and
Well,
I
of course,
think
I-
you all feel the same.
right before I tell them to make sure they wake me up, I will think of this meeting.
Yeah.
But I like that, this old fart coming from this guy.
Anyway, thank you all very much.
need a
and
motion to
thank you,
adjourn?
staff.
Well,
Yes,
good
we
luck,
do.
Charlie.
Motion to
with
adjourn.
that procedure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. Has it been seconded?
Yep.
All in favor?
Yep.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Have a great holiday, everybody.
Yep.
Happy New Year.
Louis, what do you got?
And when they start putting